Are you in the process of buying property from someone only to find out, wait, it's still in the name of their parents? Or worse, their grandparents? Or are you trying to sell property that you inherited, but the title is still in the name of your great-grandfather?
Buying property plays such an important part in our day-to-day lives. For some, it can mean fulfilling a lifelong dream to provide shelter for their family. For some, it can be the next step, like starting a business where the possibilities are endless. Many times, it involves a relatively big investment on the part of the buyer, which is why it's very important that the transaction is as risk-free as possible. So what happens now if the property we are about to buy or sell is in the name of someone who died long ago? Is this a deal breaker? Is there something fishy going on? If not, how much additional effort is involved when dealing with this situation? So our question for today comes from Bernadette. Hi Bernadette, and she writes, Attorney, my husband and I are finally ready to buy property for our young family. We found a house and lot which fits our needs and our budget. But when we started talking to the sellers, we found out that the property is not in their name. It's still in the name of their parents. This raised so many red flags for me. Sayang naman because we really like the property. How difficult is this situation to solve? What should I look out for? If you or anyone in your family is in a similar situation as Bernadette, stay tuned.
This video was brought to you by the Estate Settlement Guide, the fastest way to orient surviving family members when a loved one passes away. You will learn the basics of succession to know who can inherit and how much. It will guide you through the next steps your family needs to take so you don't incur penalties and you transfer property to the heirs properly. Protect your family legacy. Avoid unnecessary penalties. Go to info.legalguide.ph/estate to learn more.
Welcome to Legal Guide Philippines, where we simplify the law to help you make better choices. I'm Attorney Erwin Zagala, and I'm with my partner,
Attorney Ramon Ramirez.
So today, we're talking about buying properties where the owner on the title is someone who passed away.
Right. Okay, so let's set the context, Attorney Erwin. So what's happening to Bernadette? She's about to buy property. Okay, this is a very typical situation.
Yes.
She's about to buy property, and of course, she's going to ask, okay, can I see the title? Diba? And then what does she find out? She sees na, oh, teka, sino si Procopio? Or whatever the dad's name or parent's name, diba? This isn't you, diba? And then there's the person selling will say, ay, no, that's my dad, or those are my parents. And we haven't transferred the property to our names, kaya ganon. So, Bernadette is like, oh no, there might be something wrong here. Or,
is this a red flag?
Yes. I think this is going to be a hassle. No? Parang, sayang, we like the property. Okay? So this actually is a very, very typical situation. It's not uncommon. Palaging nangyayari yan, guys. Okay? So why does this happen, Attorney Erwin? Well, there are many reasons. It could be that the heirs really don't know that they needed to do something about it. Akala nila automatic, no? And all they need to do is submit a letter to whoever, and okay na, matatransfer na to them, no? Or it's possible that they neglected it, or they knew about that. They knew that they had to transfer it, but life got in the way. Okay? Or maybe ano pa ba, Attorney Erwin? Kinulang sa budget.
No, pwede.
These are real reasons.
So, Attorney Ramon, it might not automatically mean that there's something fishy going on.
Absolutely, yeah.
Possibly it's more of they just didn't know, or they didn't have the capability or resources to deal with it at the time.
Correct.
So don't assume that it's a red flag na it's something malicious or someone's trying to take advantage of you. More often than not, they just didn't know what the process is.
Yes. Okay. So if this situation happens, Attorney Erwin, this is not necessarily a deal breaker automatically. Okay. So we need to weigh carefully what are the real risks involved. We can't just weigh the risk by, and we can weigh these risks by looking at some basic things. We identified 3 things that we want you to look at. Okay?
And supposing you were to ask a lawyer, attorney, what should I look out for?
Mhm.
These are the 3 that we will be feeding to you
Right.
before you meet with the seller.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, first point, what we want you to look out for is, are you transacting with the proper people? So, what does this mean? In our situation, are they the real owners? Okay? Are they the proper heirs to begin with? Kasi ano ba yung situation? Namatay yung parents ng seller, and then napunta sa kanila yung property, but hindi pa nata-transfer sa kanila yung property. No? So, the first thing you look at is, are you dealing with totoong heirs? Right? Sila ba talaga yan? Sila ba talaga yung anak? No? Now, who are the heirs? In general, this means yung mga takapagmana. Okay? And previous episodes and previous lessons, we've taught you what heirs are and sino yung nagsasucceed. Okay? But in Filipino, they are the takapagmanas. Now, it doesn't mean that if the property is not in their name, hindi sila yung owners. Okay? Because the civil code provides that from the moment of death of the parents, okay, or let's say it's the dad,
decedent.
Yeah, the decedent. No? From exact moment of death, the heirs take the place of the of the decedent in the property. So they, from the moment of death, sila na yung may-ari. Okay, they own the property. It's just that the documentation has not caught up to reflect the ownership.
Hindi lang na-process pa. So, hindi na-update.
Yes. Okay. So, but they are owners. Okay. That's why it's important to know, are they really the heirs? All right. So, yun. So, for all intents and purposes, they are the owners and they are definitely the right persons to talk about.
Ang dami nating na-encounter, Attorney Ramon, na situations wherein ang daming heir-airan.
Yes, that's right. No, yung mga pamangkin
or pinsan ng kaibigan, ng tita,
ng gwardiya ni ganito, no? Or katiwala or whatever. No? So there are a lot of ways to determine yung yung heirs. And if you're interested in learning about how to determine the heirs, please check out our estate settlement guide workshop. Or also, you can also check out our other previous episodes or our previous lessons.
The estate settlement guide can be found at info.legalguide.ph/estate.
Yun. All right. Sige. Now, what don't we want to happen? Ito na nga yung sabi ni Attorney Erwin na what we don't want to happen is we start dealing with people who are not the heirs. Like, sino ba yan? Yung mga pamangkin ng kung sino, or mga katiwala ng original owner, di ba? These people doesn't mean that they're not supposed to talk to you, but just be aware na hindi sila yung actual heirs, right? Now, when you're faced with this situation where the owner of the title is already deceased, it's not automatically a bad thing that you're talking to katiwalas or mga pinsan-pinsan, okay? They might be acting on behalf of the real owners or the heirs. So, sino yung mga typical situations na nito? Usually brokers, diba? So, they might have some documentation saying that they are allowed to transact with you. Okay. So,
speaking of brokers, kailangan din mag-ingat. Kasi kung merong heir-airan, meron ding mga broker-brokeran.
So, ayun. So, what do you need to look out for? Look out for the fact that they are given the proper authority to act on behalf of the real owners or the heirs. Okay?
Here in the Philippines, kasi there are certain situations wherein malaman na someone's interested in property. Naku, lahat na lang sumasawsaw.
Yes.
And then kapag the deal pushes through, lahat sila syempre.
May part sila. May commission.
Because they were integral in facilitating the deal. So, be careful who you deal with.
So, again, to drive the point, no, it's not a bad thing if you're dealing with non-heirs, but because they could be representing properly, but this does tell us to investigate further who you are talking to. Okay, who are they with respect to the heirs or the original owner? Okay, because again, there's been so many cases where properties were sold by people who should not have sold the property, and it led to so many problems later on.
And nakapag-down ka na.
Yes. Okay, and kakasuhan tayo later on or whatever. And this could have been avoided by taking that simple step of investigating. Now, if you are dealing with an heir, usually what happens is you're talking to one or two of them only. Diba? Or not, usually not all. So to further protect yourself, just make sure that the heir or representative or even the broker, they have that proper SPA. Kasi pwedeng mangyari na isang heir lang ang kausap mo and then yung pala nag-aaway sila ng other ng siblings and they don't want to sell the property. Diba? You could run into problems there. Okay, so just make sure they're authorized. Now, another thing that we want you to look into is why was the property not transferred in the name of the heirs to begin with? Diba? Bakit hindi nyo na-transfer yan?
Is there something fishy?
Is there something? But again, there are so many reasons why this can happen. Like we said earlier, the heirs didn't know. Very typical, heirs are abroad. Okay, they really don't know what to do and they don't really care, no? So wala nang nangyari. Or the heirs knew about it but they did not think it was important. Or they knew about it but they did not have the time or resources to continue it. Diba? Baka kinulang sa budget or walang nakatoka, walang busy lahat, no? Everybody has a day job, 'di ba? So hindi nila naasikaso. Other reasons, maybe hindi ganun kagaling or maybe the service providers that they got might not be as competent or a combination of any of these scenarios.
I think, Attorney Ramon, the takeaway here is do not assume that there's malice or anything bad happening behind the scenes.
Yes.
And it's worth asking the question. That way you get a better idea of what really happened.
Right.
Aling reason ba dyan?
So yun. So now what happened? So now these are the possible reasons. But what should have happened? What typically happens when someone dies, and how are the properties transferred to the heirs?
Oh, so parang may summary ka na ng estate settlement.
No, parang ganyan. No? So in the case of property, okay, let's talk about Bernadette's property. The law requires that before the title is transferred to the heirs, the estate taxes should first be paid. Yan, okay? So if this was not paid, then the heirs can't be reflected as the owners in the title.
May nauna pa pala sa brokers na nakaganon.
Oh, syempre, of course, we have to pay the government. Because the law tells us to pay estate tax.
Yes.
Yan. Okay. So what are the steps in estate settlement? First, these are general steps, guys. Again, we talk about these steps in more detail in our estate settlement guide. But just to give you a preview, estate settlement, so the first step is you do the estate settlement. Ano ba yung estate settlement? It could either be judicial or extrajudicial.
Dalawa lang yan.
Yan. Okay? So, posibleng the courts are involved and posibleng hindi rin sila ma-involved. Okay? There are ways to do that. Okay? So, you do that. Next, again, like we said earlier, you pay the estate tax. And you pay that to the Bureau of Internal Revenue or the BIR. Okay? Please pay our government the estate tax. Once the estate tax is paid, you go back again to the BIR and you ask for a certificate of authorizing registration.
Or a car.
A car. Okay, not kotse, a car. Certificate authorizing registration. What does this document do? It tells the world, it tells everybody that, okay, as far as the Bureau of Internal Revenue is concerned, the estate tax on this estate or these properties, whatever, have been paid and safe. Okay, you're cleared. Okay, and that's what the car does. And then you take this car to the Register of Deeds. The Register of Deeds is the government office in charge of all the titles that we have in the Philippines, and including transferring of the title. So you show that car to the Register of Deeds and say, I'm paid. Please transfer the properties in the name of the heirs.
But that goes for land, syempre,
Yes.
kasi we're talking, the context of this episode is land. But if it's another kind of property, you then show it to the appropriate agency. Kunwari, shares of stock.
Yeah, you show
go
that
to the company.
Yeah, the CORSEC of the company. Ganyan, no? So, depends on what the requirements are. Okay, but for land, we go to the Register of Deeds.
Or RD.
RD, we call the RD. So, now that you know the general process, you go back and investigate. Diba? The question is, bakit hindi na-transfer? Okay? Posibleng they didn't do any of this. No? They didn't do any of the estate settlement procedures. But if they started it, you have to determine where are we in the process. Okay? What have we done so far and why did it not move? Okay, just so we understand that there's really nothing fishy going on, or if there is, at least you know. All right. Now, again, if you want more details on this, go to info.legalguide.ph/estate. Now, the third point, and the third thing that we want you to look at is, are there any more obligations attached to the property?
Hindi lang pala yung selling price.
Yes.
May sabit pa.
Yes. No, because it's possible that there are other things that need to be paid aside from the estate tax. Diba? So, how do we find out if there are possible things to pay pa? Okay? The first thing that you look at is, you look at the title itself.
Pinakamadali. You just turn it over.
Yes. So the title will include what we call their annotations. Okay, and there will be notes there. Basically, annotations or notes, no? Notes saying what? Probably na mortgage ba yan? Okay, may utang pa ba yung may-ari ng property, and nakasangla ba yung property, no?
Are there restrictions to the use of the property?
Correct. Are there restrictions? Possible na dinonate sa kanya and may mga restrictions.
Are there easements?
Exactly. So we need to find these things out, no? Because we found out the estate tax has not been paid yet or whatever. At least we also look into the title itself. Okay. Another thing that we also want to find out is, are the real property taxes up to date? Diba? Kasi that's part and parcel of transferring property to your name. If you're a buyer, no, you want that you will get a property na bayad yung buo, yung pamilyar.
Why, Attorney Ramon? Why is that so important?
It's so important because the Register of Deeds will not allow that it be transferred to you if you have not paid the real property taxes.
It's true.
Okay, they will ask for that. No? Again, you know naman that we should always pay our taxes as responsible citizens of the Philippines. All right. So guys, those are the three main factors that we want you to look at, or three basic factors that we want you to look at if you encounter a situation where you are buying property from somebody na hindi nakapangalan sa kanila, or it's nakapangalan sa parents nila. Now, there are more factors to consider for due diligence, but these are the most basic things that we want you to look at. Of course, it goes without saying that it will always be very helpful to have a professional to consult who can offer advice coming from, of course, their knowledge and experience.
Especially for the third point, wherein you gave the tip na look at the back portion of the title. Because we don't expect you guys to understand all of that. Attorney, what's easement?
Ano yung mortgage? Ano ba yan?
What are restrictions? So, ano to? Parang may section 5 annotation. What are these things? Only a professional would be qualified to explain all of these things to you. So do not be shy. Do not feel embarrassed about asking for help, because God knows we don't expect non-lawyers or non-real estate practitioners to understand all of those variations on annotations.
True. Okay, Attorney Erwin, we talked about a lot of things. Let's do a recap.
Sure. We covered a lot of things, Attorney Ramon. And let's start off with point number 1. If you are going to buy property that is not in the name of the sellers, here are the 3 things that we want you to know about. Again, point number 1, are we transacting with the proper heirs? You might be talking to someone who has no authority whatsoever. You keep talking and talking and talking, but at the end of the day, they have no authority to finally complete the sale with you. Be sure that you are talking with the proper heirs. Or if it's not the heirs themselves, at least someone who has the blessing and the authorization from the heirs.
Right.
Correct, Attorney Ramon?
Yes.
Now, point number 2 is try to find out why was the property not transferred in the name of the heirs or current owners. Guys, listen to us. If you are a buyer, you have all the right in the world to ask as many questions as you want. Ask as many questions until you feel comfortable with the situation. And what are the questions that we recommend that you ask? Try to find out what the situation was. Why wasn't it transferred? What was the reason? Is it because the heirs were ignorant about estate laws? They didn't have the opportunity, the resources, the time? Is it because, the process was a little bit hard for them to follow,
Mm.
or they endorsed it to someone who did not follow through. It's very important that you get the context, because that context will determine whether it's a red flag or not.
Yes, correct.
If it's the result of ignorance or incapacity, I don't think it's a red flag. It's something that you can easily remedy by understanding the process. However, if the cause is something a little bit more malevolent
Yun.
or deceptive, such as the heirs are fighting with each other
Mhm.
as to the distribution, then that might be a genuine red flag right there. Now, point number 3 is, are there any more obligations attached to the property? Guys, when you are buying property, it's not all about the selling price. That is just the starting point. You have to look at the other factors involved. And where do you go there? First off is look at the back of the title.
Yep.
Attorney Ramon,
Look
if
at the
there are
annotations.
annotations,
Mhm.
and try to see if there are restrictions that you don't agree with.
Mhm.
Second is, try to look if it is updated in terms of estate taxes. Because if it's not updated,
Real property tax.
yes,
Yes.
real property taxes. Because if that is not updated and you push through with the sale, somebody has to pick up the bill.
Yes, correct.
And if you guys weren't uh, able to discuss it, you might end up picking the bill yourself just because you want the transaction to push through. We
True.
don't want you to find yourself in that situation. Have all of the key bases covered before you enter into the transaction, and that includes updated records of the real property taxes. Did that cover everything, Attorney Ramon?
Ang galing, Attorney Erwin. You
Okay.
really understood it. For most of you, this lesson was more than enough, and if it makes your life easier, you're welcome. But there are some of you who will watch this episode and they end up asking more questions,
Mhm.
like, ano ba? Attorney, how do I know who the heirs are? Diba? Or attorney, what if there are other properties involved?
That
Hindi lang
makes it
isa.
complicated.
Yes, sobra.
Oo.
Or in different locations pa.
Mm.
Yan. or attorney, how do we even compute the estate tax? What are the things to consider? No? So, and if that's you, and if you have more questions, then we invite you to check out the Estate Settlement Guide workshop. Now, guys, this is a workshop. This is an online workshop. It's not a book. Okay?
We keep getting questions. Oh, I ordered the estate settlement workshop. Why hasn't it been delivered yet?
Right,
It's
no.
not a book.
Yes, it's a online workshop. Okay, so in this workshop, in as little as 1 hour, we give you a crash course on succession law. Ano ba yung succession law, Attorney Erwin?
Yung paglipat kapag
Yeah.
may decedent.
Right,
Yan.
and sino ang mag-inherit? That's right. And of course, we give you a general roadmap of the entire estate settlement framework. Now, which is what we talked about earlier. Now, with this guide, you will know exactly where you are in the process, regardless of whether you are doing it on your own or if you have hired someone else to assist you.
Knowledge is the first line of defense. If you know what you are doing, you won't get lost.
Yes.
Mhm.
Now, you can access this workshop at info.legalguy.ph/estate.
Now, to add to that, if you want us to tackle your question in our show, go to www.legalguy.ph and click the Submit Topic button. That takes you to our corkboard, where we compile all of the questions from all of the students, readers, and viewers,
Mhm.
and we get to vote which one should we prioritize for our courses. And like the question in this episode,
Right.
that was chosen from that lot. And if you want your question featured, go ahead and click that Submit Topic button. Next, we'd like to know what's your biggest takeaway from today's video. So please write it down in the comments and let's talk about it. Last, if you feel we've earned a good rating in teaching you the concepts, letting you know a little bit about the process, please give us a like and subscribe, because it gives us feedback that we're in fact doing a good job for you guys, and it encourages us to do more videos. Who knows? The more we get motivated, the more topics you guys get to learn from.
Nice, absolutely. So, guys, one last thing. We had a lot of, we talked about a lot of things, but one last thing. There will always be legal risks to buying this kind of property. But they're not automatic hindrances or even deal breakers. Diba? There are also a lot of other factors to consider as well. Now, like, is this the perfect property for your business? Or is it the dream property for your house, for your family. Diba? Having a framework to understand these risks will be very important. Then, after you have this framework, you weigh those against the possible benefits to you. And in case of doubt, you can always reach out and consult someone.
Don't feel embarrassed.
So wasn't that simple? Now go make better choices.